Hey, we're Kurt and Danette Share with the Broken for Better podcast.
Yeah, and together we're on a mission to equip and empower marriages. We want to strengthen families for everyday life.
Enjoy the episode. Welcome back. We are talking all things parenting. We're super excited just to dive into some different conversations and different subjects that people bring to us, things that we've experienced as parents. And this week, we're going to be talking about something a little spicy.
I love when you say that, like it's
a
going to
little
be like,
saucy. But the question is, how do you keep a vibrant, intimate life, which we know what that means. It's the S word, sex. How do you keep a vibrant, intimate life when children are involved? Not involved, introduced into the family. Once you have kids, how do you keep things going as a couple just to where you stay close and connected and intimate and just
deadbolts on all the doors.
Listen, we were not opposed to locking the door. I know some parents aren't for that, but we were like, no, listen, I'm locking the door for sure. So after kids, I want to ask you, because I definitely think this was a point of tension for us by far. Probably more for you than it was for me. I'm not even probably. More for you than it was for me. But once we had kids, here we are. We were very young. We get married at 19 and 20. By 21, like my best friends were still in school, college. They're still doing, the college thing. And we're having our first child at 21, barely just out of, teen mom era. So how do you think, one, that we did, but then what were some of the things that were difficult, like those hurdles that we had to face when introducing children into our relationship?
Well, I think when you got married young, right? Like we're 19 and 20. And so those early years, it's like little rabbits, right? We're like newly married and sex is awesome and we have our own place and it's great. And so there's nothing that stops that. And wrong thinking on my part was, sure, you introduce a kid, but really nothing changes. Like you just roll right. Okay, that's just the way it's going to be. And I think when you go in with that expectation and that thought process, and maybe in some ways they don't, but for our situation and our scenario, it did. Like you're a mom, you're dealing with hormonal things that change, a lot of that stuff. And on my end, I wasn't prepared mentally to come alongside you in that world. And so I don't think very early on, which I mean leads to our the traumatic 8 years of our marriage, right? Like I just, and why? Because I was so hyper fixated on it should be the way it's always been, and it's not. So I'm going to go figure it out. You started getting like, man, my husband is completely detached doing his thing. So I'm going to lock into the kids because this is what I'm now called to love and nurture. I'm not sure what this crazy dude's doing out here right now, but it was like, you just saw our worlds going further and further apart because of a missed reality. Nobody really told me though. Like, it's like, I don't know. And maybe you should just know that. But, now as our kids got older, right? Which really is more of the problem anyway, because when they're young, nobody really knows what's going on. But when they got older, I thought we navigated it very well. We were much more open about our conversations about sex, much more transparent and honest about it. And so that lent itself to you and I being far more intentional to go, okay, how do we create time for us? I don't know if in the beginning we knew about love languages, we knew about the healthy and the unhealthy, and to learn that, okay, it's physical touch. Oh, well, that's why it's so important to me. Like, that's why I love that. Okay, great. I understand it. It's wonderful. But later on in life, we really put boundaries around like, okay, how do we create intentional time together?
Not only did we put boundaries around it, we also learned how to vocalize. We learned how to talk about it as a couple. I think at the beginning, you just expect that it's all going to work out. You just expect things to go smoothly. I just had expectations of you as a young father. You had expectations of me as a young mom. And I think we didn't do a great job preparing ourselves for what that would look like. We just got married. We started having babies, and there was very little conversation. And so if we could be a testament to that to save somebody else from chaos once you have, the first year under your belt and you start having babies and all those things, have those conversations. We didn't do that well at the beginning. We didn't I think we just immediately fell into gender roles that of expectations that we thought what this one would do and the other one would or wouldn't do. And it caused a lot of strife and it caused a lot of tension between you and I because you
Mhm.
had expectations I didn't meet and I had expectations that you didn't meet. And it just drove a wedge further and further
Yeah.
into
A
our intimacy.
and I think for me, it was, um, we didn't really talk like, that wasn't really talked about in my home.
Yeah.
Sex was always this thing was just you wait till marriage.
Yeah.
Anything outside of that, bad conversation. And you're right, you do wait I mean, my parents led me very well that you should wait till marriage. Got it. I understand that. But the curiosity, right?
Yeah.
And just the broken people that we are, our nature will tend to go to that. What I found out very early on was like, wait, hold on a minute. This thing that's so bad and should wait, it actually feels really good to the flesh. So I don't understand why it's so bad. It's kind of taboo to talk about it.
Well, it's actually a gift.
I
Yeah.
mean, but I didn't know that at the time. I'm like,
Right.
I didn't, I'm just was like, this thing that's so bad is actually very good. So I don't know. So because I didn't really talk about it, you don't really learn like, okay, how do you have open sexual conversations with your spouse?
Mm.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Like no one told me. I didn't have a mentor go, this is the way it's done. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this stuff out on my own.
Yeah.
And so it's like I had so many failures in that area of my life
Mm.
because I just never let anyone in. Well, now I begin to open that up and I start having real conversations with you. I have men in my life that hold me accountable and challenge. I learn and I seek out from mentors and advisors on, okay, what does this look like and what's a healthy way? Well, now I start realizing like this gift that God gave us and intimacy between a man and his wife, this isn't a bad taboo topic.
Right.
It's a very great topic and it's very needed. It's very intimate between a husband and a wife. You just got to be willing to have it. So even though you may have never seen it like exampled in your home doesn't mean that you can't example it in your home.
Well, and the importance of that, the reason why it's so important is like, so you had your upbringing. I had been raised in purity culture, right? Independent Baptist purity culture. Again, very, very wrong. You take, you get your purity ring, all the things. And then all of a sudden you put a different ring on and it's like, everything's free and ready and good and all these things. But that was really difficult transition for me to go from everything is wrong to everything is okay. So that was very difficult. Then you throw in the aspect of having a child and my body that is supposed to also nurture and feed my children is now also supposed to be enjoyed by my spouse and my brain. That was very difficult.
Mm,
And I think we see a lot of young couples that walk through that same transition when they start having children. You've got hormones involved, you've got exhaustion involved. You also have some things that your mind can play, as you're like, man, I don't even feel as comfortable intimately. But talking about that with your spouse is nothing against you. It's like my body feels like
mm.
it's not my own. And I don't feel comfortable in my own skin.
And see, that's the point that I think is missed a lot. I
Mhm.
didn't give you a safe place to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And I think early on, racing kids, those would have been now we talk so openly and freely.
Right.
That had been the first man, that would have been radically different for us.
Mm.
I didn't know that. So here you are fighting for your own sanity, and I'm like selfish, right?
Yeah.
Wondering why things aren't like they used to be. And and that's why it's just so we're so dogmatic about this. Like, be willing to have the conversations that seem awkward and weird. You have to have them. I promise you, it makes you better.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of our relationship, right? We talked about how hard that was because we had the kids very early. But then as we got better at the conversations and we got better because we got freer, we were able to walk through our own trauma, our own past, our own issues, our own baggage. Um, as we started to heal as a couple, we got so much better about that. So how would you suggest, one, that we prioritize it, but maybe the person that's watching it, how can they prioritize? We had 3 boys,
Yeah.
and there were a lot, and yet, it was a priority of
Yeah.
ours. So
I'll never forget early on, um, we have a couple that was very close to us as we were raising children, and it was between me and him. There were certain times, actually, I can think of a couple couples in that time that I would be willing to tell the dudes, like, "Brother, listen, can y'all watch our kids? Like, I need you to watch our kids. We ain't been alone in very long." "Oh, yeah, yeah, like, bring them over." Or they would say, "Hey, can you watch my kids tonight? I'm taking my wife out." Like, but it became this open lines of communication with other people.
Mm,
Because here's the thing, we weren't the only ones that were struggling in this area.
yeah.
We weren't the only ones having kids. We weren't the only ones going with lack of intimacy, for some regard. But once I found some guys that I could be honest with and vulnerable enough to go, "Listen, I
Mm,
need you in my world because I need to spend some alone time with my wife,"
yeah.
it became much easier for me to go, "Oh, this is great. Okay, man, this was really a healthy thing." And so I started letting people into my world that I thought was so
Taboo,
secretive
yeah.
and taboo, right? Like, man, I'm the only one angry about sex. No one else is probably mad. Well, no, there's a lot of people that are struggling in this area.
Hmm.
There's people that have put tons of boundaries on these kind of conversations. So when I had boys, it was like, "Okay, let's figure this thing out. Boys, y'all gonna go spend the night with your friends." And the kids are like, "Yeah." And dad's like, "Yeah." What I mean? And it's like this whole thing. But I just became very more intentional. And I think because we became open, we made it an open conversation.
Yeah, I think making it a safe space for, or having friends that you trust with your kids and be able to share, that's vital. I think that's very, very important. I think for us also, um, you learned how to sacrificially love me in a better way. So if I wasn't fully, maybe I was overwhelmed by the 3 boys or I was overwhelmed with this or that, you really learned how to love me well to where I was then more in a place to receive
Mm,
and want to be intimate and romantic and all those things. The other thing that I know you did well that I struggled with, and this is going to be a little bit of, what's the word? A taboo subject, because there's certain people that are all in with, like, co-sleeping. For us, personally, as a couple, we were very guarded with our bedroom. There were times that, of course, the boys would have a sleepover and we would do movie night and we'd do the popcorn and we'd even bring in like air mattresses or the boys would bring in their mattresses and we'd all kind of, bunk up and have those times. But for the most part, our bedroom was our safe haven and it was our place because, yeah, it ended up setting a divide. This is a spot that mom and I are together. And unless you are invited in, then you have your own space. And we have this living room that we do everything together and everybody's doors always open unless it's not. And this is mom and dad's
yeah.
time. And you did a great job of making that a priority. And that is something that I see in a lot of couples that it is concerning for me, at some point.
Yeah, it was probably at the time I know I made that rule out of selfish motive
Hmm.
more than it was like this is our safe place, right?
Mm.
I knew like this is the one area, my bed, my bedroom, like this is the one area you guys got to run in this whole place right now. But this is the one little thing, and we did. We made it special. We had tons of nights. We're building
Yeah.
tents
And
and
if they were
forts, and
sick
it was
or,
wonderful.
they were definitely
But
allowed in.
I do think about, and I know couples that their children, 8, 9 years old, still sleep in their bed. Well, it, yeah, that makes intimacy a lot harder,
Yeah.
and it creates this codependency. And again, I always wanted to emulate, especially as they got older. I want my boys, and I don't do this well a lot of times, but I want my boys to see what I do in my marriage and go, "Wow, that's gonna be beneficial for my house. I wanna add that." Or, "Wait, that's maybe not the way I would choose to do that. I'm gonna choose a different way." Like, they
Hmm.
have to make their own decisions, but I want them to see an example of, "Okay, this is what it looks like to honor well,
Hmm.
to honor my wife, to love a mom well." As they got older, they understood better, and it's like they knew when mom and dad, hey, we're going out, And I remember when they started getting old, we started realizing like, okay, we got teenage boys, and every Friday, Saturday, whatever night of the week, there could be two or three other boys over here too.
Yeah, we always had a house full.
And so we just be like, "Hey, we're going to the beach." And I remember they start asking the question, "Are y'all coming home or are y'all gonna stay in a hotel room?"
We
Uh,
don't know.
We'd be like, "Not real sure. We may stay in a hotel room with our points, or we may come home. Who knows?" But they got older, so they just knew like, "Oh, okay, y'all just do what y'all do. We don't want to know about that." You know. But it started very early on, them understanding intimacy was something to go after and to really strive for, and you really got to fight for it.
Yeah, you do, because life's chaotic and it gets in the way, and it's so easy to get out of whack and get out
Yeah.
of a line, and so it's being willing to have those conversations, and for me, because of the first few years of our marriage, that was really hard for me to have those conversations because I would constantly go to the negative. Anytime you bring it up, I'm not meeting this expectation.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, "No, God gave us both freely to each other to enjoy each other. So, how can I love you well sacrificially? And how can you love me well sacrificially?" Man, when we're sacrificing for both, because you have different, dreams and different desires as
Mhm.
a person, when I'm sacrificing for you and you're sacrificing for me, there's no better place to
Yeah,
be.
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, there's
So good.
no better place to be.
Listen, and you can do easy things to make it happen. I think we way overthink it. I'll just tell you, like, the easiest thing you can do, you mark all your kids' games, their programs, their school functions. You put that on a calendar. Everything goes on a calendar. There's nothing saying
Hmm.
that you can't, in a different color, under code words. Maybe you don't want your kids reading, "Oh, look, mom and dad having sex tonight." Like that. I get you may not put that on the calendar, but there's other code words and other colors and other things that you can do to schedule it.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta understand, if God gave this as a gift
Hmm.
and made it pleasurable for a couple, you have to like really fight to maintain this area in your relationship. And I get there's tons of reasons why, and it's not the thing that holds a marriage together, but it is a gift and it is wonderful.
Well, and the percentages of families and marriages that are successful and that are thriving, the percentage is a very high number are actually consistently intimate. The
Yeah,
spouses are consistently intimate. And so if that's the percentage, we should be striving for that as well because God created it
so good.
and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Um,
Define consistently. Is that
that's the age-old
daily?
question. Isn't that the
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 age-old
And
question.
you'll have different seasons, like, where there's ebbs and flows and consistent is different. And we've had people, and I believe you would have said the same thing. I don't wanna schedule it because then it feels like, it's an assignment or a chore. And I understand that, but if you're in a season of life where it is totally chaotic and you aren't putting it on the calendar, you're not scheduling, it's very easy for it to just go by the wayside.
You're right, I would have said that,
Yeah.
but I also would have said that in a very unhealthy, selfish season.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because what I would do mentally in that moment is go, "Yeah, I don't wanna do that. You should just want it." Like, you should just bring that's a very selfish lover to go, "Yeah, of course, yeah, you should I don't have to schedule that. You should just always be there."
Yeah.
No, someone who's selfless
Mhm.
and walks in humility understands that there's seasons that ebb and flow. And you can look at it negative, or I could see a marking on the calendar and go, "Oh, tomorrow's the day. Uh-oh, we're gonna prime the pump all day to make this a very special thing."
Well, it
You
allows
have the
you
choice.
yeah, it allows you to speak love into me and vice versa when we have something like that, and almost every couple, there's a microwave and a crock pot, right? Typically, the female is the crock pot, it takes a longer time to warm up, all the things. Most guys are a microwave, push the button, we're ready to go, and so for me to know, okay, tomorrow there's an expectation, we've got a date night, I'm going to do everything that I can to prepare myself, I'm gonna make sure that all the things are cut and ready and prepped and everything's ready so that we get to have the most interaction together and focus on one another.
Correct.
And so it just helps
It's how
prepare.
you look at it. I
Yeah.
mean, the way you frame that up and the way you look at it, you get to make that decision.
Yeah. What advice would you give to couples who are feeling disconnected Like maybe intimacy has definitely taken a backseat,
Yeah.
but they don't know where to start. Like
Yeah.
our intimacy has taken a backseat. It's not on the forefront. It's unhealthy. How do we start?
First off, I'll tell you, you got to sometimes, and you may or may not want to hear this, but sometimes you got to get people involved.
Hmm.
It's why we coach. It's why others coach. It's why there's so many, because sometimes you are stuck and you don't know how to move, and you're almost scared to move forward,
Hmm.
because moving forward means that I'm forgetting everything and I'm no longer, and that's just not the case. Sometimes you got to navigate things in order to move forward. So one, get help, but two, even just basically in your own home at its basic level, is to sit down in humility with a spouse and go, listen, I know our kids mean the world to us. And I know we have priorities, but you and I are top priority.
Hmm.
I'm feeling like this is an area that we're neglecting. Is there something on my end? Like, am I not, like as you said, priming the pump well? Am I not loving you the way you need to be loved? Or if something else happened, what is it that's created this massive divide into something that was so special?
Yeah.
Like, that's a conversation to be had. And I think this is what we expect many times to happen. We're distance. Okay. We have a distance between you and I. Intimacy's not there, and we're just moving. And we just expect that one day our partner is going to wake up, be as horny as all get out, forget everything that's been creating tension or division,
Yeah.
and let's just move past it and act like it never happened.
Hmm.
That's just not reality.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna happen that way. So it's like, if there's a divide, there's tension, well, now we gotta work that dance out. Let's
Yeah.
get back in unity together. And the only way you're gonna do that, sit down and have a face-to-face honest conversation.
Well, and the conversations are so important for one reason only, like we change. Like you bringing me flowers and chocolates when we're dating might have meant the world to me and made me feel so loved and whatever. But when we have 3 little boys under the age of 5 running around and the house is chaotic, you bring me flowers, I'm like, "Great, I have
You
to
didn't even get
try."
the chocolates, they ate them.
I know they ate them, and I have something else to keep alive, it's like so having those conversations, like, what would speak so much to me would be 30 minutes of quiet while I take a nice bath with candles and you watch the kids and put them down for me. Because, it's that those conversations are so needed. What
Yeah.
can I do to take something off of your plate so that you feel, 1, more connected to me, but also gives you the space in your mind and in your heart to be to wanna be intimate? And yeah, so those conversations are important.
You brought out a thing the other day that I just was like, this question, and something we were doing, like, do you want to be a selfless lover or a selfish lover?
Hmm.
And man, when I saw it and I heard you talk, is like such a great question. And so many times, especially in this area of intimacy and this physical part of our relationship, we are selfish.
Mhm.
We know what we like, we know what we want, how we want it, how many times we want it. Like, we're very selfish. And I would just encourage, man, let this be an area that you just become selfless, that you just try to outdo your partner. You just love in ways that totally speak their love language. And what I know, I don't know much, but I do know you become selfless in this area, and you begin to watch your intimacy level rise.
Absolutely.
You can't have two people outdoing each other in intimacy, being selfless, and it not just create this romance in you that's just something you've never seen before.
Mm,
So,
yeah. Being selfless means we're gonna have to constantly forgive each other over and over and over again so that we can just continue to get connected.
mm,
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us. That was fun chatting about intimacy. And there's so much more we could say. But if you are in the throes of parenthood and you've got little ones, we just want to encourage you, make it a priority. Make sure that you don't forget your first love because God brought you together. He wants you to succeed and He made all of these things beautiful. And so we need to figure it out. We need to figure it out, even if it's hard conversations. We hope it encouraged you. We'll see you next week.